So Balaji, like one more thing which most people, especially the retail investors, struggle is they are confused how to go about reading an annual report. So some sense on what should be not the ideal, but again could be a best way to read annual reports and get the maximum out of
I
it.
think annual report reading, if someone can inculcate, it will do extremely good because so how do I go about it? The first thing I go to the balance sheet and see this one number, what the aggregate size of the balance sheet, which could be 100, and if you say equity capital should be above 50, it means equity capital will be 70 rupee and the entire balance sheet size should be 100, right? Like 1.4 ratio, 1.3. Every great company balance sheet size, if you see, will trade between 1.2 times to 1.6 times of equity capital. Basically, apart from equity capital, there could be a little more of payables, some tax credit, all that sitting, right? But you will not see a very complicated balance sheet. A balance sheet where equity capital is 50 and the balance sheet size is 150 or 200, right? You clearly know there is a lot more things has been cooked in. Typically this business is undercapitalized. They are either funded by their suppliers or borrowers, short term, long term, or some other variable, right? So there is so much variable at that level. I think that's a first form of finding whether we are in a very good company. The names you have spoken earlier, or the names which I alluded, right, a great MNC names, you just see the balance sheet, you'll understand the equity to balance sheet size ratio between 1.3 to 1.5. So that's a very good starting point. The second start point is you go to cash flow, go line by line and see how many line items are filled in. Typically, lot more lengthy cash flows are little more tedious because there are lot more variables they're trying to put in. And one number you need to see is how much cash flow from generation post working capital, right? That gives you whether the company has generated adequate money because you pay salaries, you pay everyone using cash. P&L is prepared for taxman, cash flow is prepared for the business. So cash flow will be the second item. The third item will be P&L. So this is at the static level. The best way to look at annual report is like how Sanjay Bakshi sir alluded or Mr. Buffett alluded, right? Think like a movie. Just go 5 years back and see the same balance sheet, same cash flow, and you will feel in a good company the structure will be very similar. You will not see any debt. There will be very few items. The size of the balance sheet to equity will be very good. Cash flow will be very positive, consistently above. So all these numbers will allude. And finally, the commentary, right? Few annual reports are extremely good. This year, as a house, we are attempting 250 AGMs, and we have actually already figured out 28 annual report where the annual report is calling out so much information on their customer, their industry, changing dynamics. So every day today, roughly 40, 50, I think those who are using Screener, we know, right? Close to 50, 60, 70 annual reports are coming out. A fantastic phase to spend time as a house. At least me personally, I spend close to 2 hours in a day on annual report now because this is the time of the phase where put your head down and keep reading, and you end up finding one or two jewel every month. That's good, no? I think that's how you should do it. Read the commentary. What did they say 4 years back? What did they do? That's how you can reconcile. So there are many variables in annual report, but I think a balance sheet and schedule. The final one more thing I missed out is other expenses, right? Other expenses is something which, if you pay attention, you will get to know what type of a company this is, right? So there are companies which disclose a lot. There are companies disclose what type of expenses are growing, which gives you a very good idea, which is not available before the results, right? Because once the schedule comes, you'll be able to see a lot more. So I think other expenses is something which I keep very good monitoring because if you look at few blockbuster ideas, they have, if you look at other expense ratio to PBT, right? The day other expense doesn't grow, actually PBT start growing better. So a lot of clues will happen if you can closely track the major item in other expenses. So I think these are the few things apart from due diligence can be done, right? In terms of the independent directors, right? So one of the thing which we should definitely pay a strong attention is the board structure. Does the board has a right representation of independent directors? Does the board has relevance to the particular industry? Does the chairman has the ownership of creating some value to the shareholder. I think the board is something which we pay less attention. I think as a house, we believe a good board is a very, very essential variable to create a right environment for management to perform. And finally, the items which they bring to the agenda on the AGM, there will be definitely lot of nuanced way of how, let's say you appoint a CEO, right? The day you appoint, you have to call out how the CEO is paid in terms of fixed variable, bonus, ESOP. So you get to know a lot more ingredients on how the CEO is measured, how the CEO is rewarded. All these valuable inputs are given in the annual report, and that will give you a very good insight on how the leader, right, which is a CEO or MD, will act because his incentive structure is tied to maybe a PBT performance or an ROC performance, right? That's what we look forward, right? So these are small clues are given in multiple pieces in annual report. I think anybody spends time, definitely they will definitely get rewarded. I would say the best thing is to read annual report, apart from good books.
Can't agree more on this, Balaji. So although like most of the pointers you already discussed, but like